Hey everybody, John Felt here. This is the Blue Water Outlook weekly weather briefing for November 3rd, 2024. We're getting into November now, and this is usually the time of fall where we go from the quiet part of fall with clear days, sunny days, oftentimes on the warm side, like we saw last week, into more vigorous weather systems. And that is what we're seeing here. I have a couple weather systems, vigorous weather systems over the next week. Let's talk about that in today's briefing. Now, I want to start off by taking a look at some of the flood threats or the weather threats this week. They're all associated with this frontal boundary in the middle part of the nation, and we could get some excessive rain and flooding, and we could also have some severe storms over the next couple days right over the middle part of the nation. Now, over the last week, we're beginning to see that beginning of that system developed late last week and went into the weekend. Look at Oklahoma, 5 inches of rain or more into parts of Kansas and right here in the central part of the U.S. And that area has been really dry. So to an extent, this rain is needed, but at some point you get more than you really even need. Now, in addition to the rain, we had some snow at higher elevations. That's typical for this time of year. Rockies are beginning to become snow covered, and we also have in the Cascades and other areas of the west, higher elevations, we're getting some snow. But last week was a week of record high temperatures in many areas. Take a look at these temperature departures, 10 to 15 degrees above normal in these areas in red. So we're looking at unusually warm weather and in some cases record warm. Last week the hottest temperatures, yellow was above 80 degrees, the orange was above 85, and the red was above 95. So quite a bit of really warm weather. Now look at the Pacific Northwest. That did not make it out of the 40s and 50s. And overnight lows, the coldest temperatures of the week, blues below 30 degrees and purple below 20 degrees. Okay, so where have we had that first occurrence of freezing or 32-degree temperatures? And anything shaded here, we've had that. And last week we filled in some of this map. That light green is where it occurred over the last week. And we're progressing with the fall leaf change colors. And anything in the dark shades here, we're past our peak. So many areas it's beginning to look a little bit like late fall or early winter. Anything in red here, that's where we're at our peak at the current time. Okay, so let's talk about the setup here. What we're getting here is we're getting moisture feeding in from the Gulf around an area of high pressure, sort of coming like this, and it's feeding into this boundary here and enhancing rainfall. Now, before I talk about that, let's talk about rivers here. And you can see that many of these rivers in that heavy rain are already responding. These are smaller tributaries, areas in red. We are looking at the potential for moderate flooding. And what we have here, I wanted to show you the low flow situation. We're seeing these bumps here. We'll see these bumps, these rises on our hydrographs. We're putting some more water into the main stem Mississippi, but it's going to attenuate, so it's not going to necessarily solve the whole problem of the low flows yet, but we're starting to dig out of it, I think, putting some water back into our rivers. Okay, so what do we have here? Right now we have this highly amplified flow with a dip in the jet stream in the west, and that's associated with cold weather or cooler weather, and then this ridging in the east, and that's associated with unusually warm weather. And when we get these gradients between high pressure and low pressure, that's when we get more active weather. And indeed, we are going to have quite a bit of active weather both early this week and again later in the week. This is that system that ejects out of the southwest U.S. And this looks pretty strong to me late in the week into the weekend, next weekend. This is next Friday. So starting the week and ending the week, looks like some active weather. Okay, so let's look at temperature and then we'll look at precipitation. First of all, temperature this week and the next 15 days. Take a look at that red. We are looking at, again, 10 to 15 degrees above normal, even 20 degrees in a few spots this week. Likewise, as we get into the second week of November, so the eastern U.S., we are going to have some really mild weather. The western U.S., on the other hand, is going to have some unusually cold weather for the start of November. And right through the middle of November, really not a whole lot of change. Just sort of draw a line through here. And west of that line, below normal temperatures, east of that line, above normal, and maybe close to that line, closer to normal. So do you know when hurricane season ends? Well, it ends the end of November. And right now we have a few things to watch. Let's keep an eye on the Western Caribbean. Water temperatures are still warm enough for development, and there could be development. Actually, it's likely over the next week. We'll keep an eye on it. During my post, I'll update you with that. If that gets into the Gulf of Mexico, it's a possibility, but right now it's a little bit uncertain. So let's just keep an eye on it. But more of a certainty is the heavy rain this week. Right at the current time this weekend, we have a warm front right here and then a cold front. And that's going to focus some really heavy rain over the central U.S. 1 to 4 inches of rain, in some cases 4 to 6 inches of rain, right from North Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, southeast Kansas, Missouri, and then up towards Illinois. So some very heavy rain in those areas, and that could result in some localized flooding. What about snow? Well, more snow at higher elevations here in the western U.S. where we have the colder air in place. Now, we could even get in a situation where you go drought to flood. I sort of outlined where the heaviest rain is expected to be. Most of that area is in anywhere from abnormally dry, moderate drought to areas in red, which is severe drought. And those areas could actually go from drought to flood. So this might be one of these situations where rain is needed, but after you get 3 or 4 inches of rain, it's still going to produce that risk of flooding. And we do have an outline for potential excessive rainfall in those areas of yellow. Okay, now here's the extended outlook. Let's look a little bit further out. 6 to 10 and 8 to 14. Here's that very strong system. So that's moving over areas that just got the heavy rain. So we're going to be really wet over parts of the plains into the parts of the Midwest. And even weeks 3 and 4 here, you can see that pattern of wet weather. Now, as far as temperatures, well, looks like the far western U.S. is going to remain below normal and the east above normal. And finally, to end the briefing, just take a look. If you didn't see that in my post on Friday, here is your outlook for November that was updated. That's this week's very active central U.S. weather forecast. I'll be keeping you updated as we go through the week. Take care.